Unaware his wife secretly owned the company. Signing his $20 billion deal, husband kicked her out of his promotion party. What she did next crushed him. He didn't just ignore her. He didn't just embarrass her. He stood in the center of his own promotion party, confetti still falling, cameras still flashing, and pointed at the woman who had supported him for years, the woman he believed was just admin, and ordered security to escort her out like she was a stranger who wasn't worthy of sharing his spotlight. That night, Emily Ross walked into that celebration wearing the same quiet dignity she always carried, already holding a secret that could destroy everything he was bragging about. Years earlier, in silent boardrooms and under confidential contracts, she had signed the documents that made her the hidden majority owner of Lexington Dynamics, the company her husband's firm was about to sign a $20 billion deal with. She wasn't there for attention. She wasn't there for credit. She was there to support her husband, because even after months of coldness, she still believed in him. But instead of pride, she found Daniel laughing with another woman, his consultant, who clung to his arm like she belonged there more than Emily ever had. She found coworkers whispering behind her back, and she found Daniel himself looking at her as if her presence alone ruined the image he was desperately trying to show off. "Why did you even come?" he snapped. Then he nodded to security, and in front of the entire room, he let them walk her out. He thought he was fixing an embarrassment. He thought he was protecting his reputation. He thought the company signing his dream deal would never notice. What he never imagined was this: the woman he had just pushed out of the room was the majority owner of that very company, the silent force behind the signing, and the only person with the power to freeze his future, crush his promotion, and end everything he had just celebrated. Dear viewers, thank you for being here with me today. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Emily's quiet strength be drowned out by arrogance. When you tap that subscribe button, you stand beside every underestimated partner, every silenced voice, and every person quietly planning a comeback. Please subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The room shook with the sharp buzz of Emily Ross's phone, snapping the quiet night in half. She jerked her head up from the desk, eyes strained from hours of reading fine print. A half-finished contract lay open in front of her. Red marks streaked across the margins like battle scars. The air felt tense, heavy, as if something important was about to shift, something she could feel in her chest before she could explain it. Emily, 32 years old, self-made, steady-handed, and quiet by nature, sat alone in the small home office she had built inside the corner of their house. The room wasn't fancy, it wasn't large, but every inch of it held her history, her fight, her sacrifices, and the truth she had never shared with her husband. The walls were lined with binders, prototypes, business plans, all showing the long path she had walked. At the center of the room stood a tall corkboard covered in old notes, early drafts, and scribbled ideas. In the top left corner was a worn blueprint labeled Lexington Dynamics Initial Concept Year 1. She had pinned it there 6 years ago when she still believed she could grow something meaningful from nothing but determination and long nights. Her eyes drifted to a faded photograph pinned next to it. Emily at age 22. Same dark eyes, but a much thinner face. She sat on the floor of a cramped apartment, surrounded by borrowed textbooks and an old laptop streaming free business law tutorials. That version of her had lived on instant noodles and hope, writing her company's first name on a dollar store whiteboard as if it were a sacred promise. The memory hit her like a soft ache. Back then, Emily had met Daniel Ross, charming, confident, 2 years older, full of easy laughter and grand plans. He was 24, just starting in corporate sales. He thought she worked in admin, and because she feared being judged for dreaming too big, she never corrected him. She let him believe she was ordinary, simple, someone without ambition. He told her it made him feel grounded, and she accepted it. It was easier than admitting she spent her nights building a company instead of sleeping. Emily blinked herself back into the present and reached for a suspicious envelope sitting on the desk. Its label read, "Acquisition complete, confidential." Her heartbeat quickened. This envelope represented everything she had fought for, every late night, every mistake, every success. It held formal confirmation that the last stage of her quiet acquisition and restructuring of Lexton Dynamics was complete, locking in the control she had secretly held for years over the very company Daniel's employer now desperately needed a $20 billion partnership with. But this truth remained buried beneath a veil of LLCs and quiet contracts. Nobody, not even Daniel, knew she held that kind of power. Her phone buzzed again. A new message flashed on the screen from her lawyer, Linda. Signing reception confirmed. Apex will send Daniel as lead negotiator. He'll be there. Her fingers tightened around the phone. Not fear, not shock. Something deeper. Something she hadn't felt in years. A knock sounded on the doorframe. Daniel walked in without waiting for a reply. He was 34 now, taller, more polished, carrying the smooth confidence of a man climbing a corporate ladder fast. His tie was loose from a long day, and his face carried the kind of tired pride he often wore after receiving praise at work. But he didn't see her exhaustion. He didn't see the hours she poured into documents that affected entire industries. He saw only his version of her, someone doing little admin projects. Daniel glanced at her papers with mild amusement. Still up? You work too hard on that. What do you call it? Your side hobby? Emily slid the envelope a little under a stack of folders before he could notice the label. She forced a small smile. It's not a hobby, it's important. Sure, he murmured, already pulling out his phone. His attention drifted to the glowing screen as if her words barely brushed against his mind. He didn't say it unkindly. He said it without thinking, because he had never really seen what she did. She had spent years shrinking her achievements so he wouldn't feel overshadowed. Years downplaying her intelligence so he wouldn't feel small. And now the distance between them had grown too far for her to cross alone. Emily's phone buzzed again. This time Linda followed up. We'll review press strategy tomorrow. Also heard Apex is planning a big promotion party for Daniel before the signing. You sure you're okay with him being the face? Emily swallowed. The promotion party. Tomorrow night. So he'd be celebrated. Under a spotlight she helped build without knowing it. When she saw the final line, her stomach tightened. If things go wrong publicly, it could affect the signing optics. We'll talk. Daniel looked up casually. Who's that? Work, she answered quickly, letting the phone fall face down. She stared at the corkboard again. The blueprint, the old whiteboard photo, the first sketch of her company logo. Everything suddenly felt heavier, as if her past and her present were finally colliding. A quiet thought slipped into her mind, chilling but clear. If he's the one they're sending into that signing, then everything is about to change. Daniel's voice blasted through the bedroom as he practiced his speech, his tone sharp, commanding, almost aggressive. The mirror shook slightly each time he pointed at his own reflection, as if directing a room full of executives who didn't exist. He repeated the opening line again and again, tightening his jaw, adjusting his suit, raising his chin higher each time. The intensity in his movements filled the entire house, leaving no space for quiet. Emily stood in the hallway watching him, her hands still holding the phone from the messages she received the night before. The words, Apex will send Daniel as lead negotiator. He'll be there. And promotion party echoed in her mind like a warning drum. But Daniel didn't notice her expression. He didn't notice much these days. Daniel Ross, 34, newly promoted vice president at Apex Corporation, had become someone she barely recognized. Once he used to laugh easily, relaxed, approachable. Now he moved like a man convinced the world was watching him. He inspected every detail, the shine of his shoes, the cut of his suit, the tone of his voice, as if perfection itself would guarantee success. He rehearsed again, louder this time. And securing this partnership with Lexton Dynamics will redefine our position in the industry. Emily flinched. Lexton Dynamics, her company, her name nowhere on record, her ownership hidden behind an LLC she acquired through a quiet merger, one she built with her own exhaustion. A memory flickered. Flashback. Emily sat in a small glass conference room 3 years earlier. She was tired, hair pulled back, eyes heavy from nights without rest. Her lawyer, Linda Carter, a calm middle-aged woman, slid a thick document across the table and said, "With this structure, Emily, nobody will link you to the company unless you decide to reveal it. Your ownership stays invisible. You get the control, the board gets stability, and your personal life stays separate. Emily remembered how relieved she felt. Back then, she wanted to shield Daniel. She believed her growing success might intimidate him. She believed giving him space to shine would help their marriage. Back then, she never imagined he would outgrow her, outgrow the version of her he thought she was. She blinked out of the memory as Daniel practiced another part of his speech. His voice had taken on a smug rhythm. "Once this deal is signed, I'll be untouchable," he declared. He adjusted his cufflinks again, new ones he bought just yesterday. Gold, loud, expensive, a symbol of how quickly he had become obsessed with the image he wanted the world to see. Emily stepped into the room. "You're practicing a lot. Are you nervous about tonight?" Daniel turned too fast, irritation flashing across his face before he could hide it. "Emily, please, not now. You don't understand how big this is. The promotion party is practically a pre-celebration for the signing." Her chest tightened, not from his words, but from how casually he dismissed her. Again. She tried to speak gently. "I know it's big. I just wanted to check on you." "Well, don't," he snapped, then sighed dramatically. "I'm under enough pressure. Last thing I need is questions." He turned away and picked up his phone. It buzzed immediately, lighting up with a new message. A preview appeared clearly this time. The contact name visible. Maya, consultant. "She won't be a problem tonight." Emily's heart sank. The she didn't need explanation. She didn't know every detail. She didn't want to guess. But she understood enough. Daniel chuckled softly at the screen. He didn't look up. He didn't see Emily watching. He didn't see how her shoulders lowered slightly in tired acceptance. She didn't accuse him. She didn't argue. She had no energy left for fights that would lead nowhere. Instead, she turned and walked back to her small office, the only place where she still felt like herself. Her desk lamp cast a warm glow over the documents scattered across the surface. The envelope marked "Acquisition Complete, Confidential" remained hidden but present, like a quiet reminder of the life she built without applause. She sank into her chair and let out a long breath. Daniel's voice still echoed faintly from the bedroom, full of confidence that had no room for her. Her phone buzzed again. A new message, this time from her lawyer. "We need to talk about Daniel attending the signing. Urgent. His public image at the promotion party will affect how the board views Apex." Emily stared at the screen, the weight of the message settling into her bones. Something was coming, something she couldn't stop anymore. A quiet thought rose, chilling and certain. If Daniel walks into that signing like the man he is now, nothing will remain the same. The sound of hangers clattering together exploded through the bedroom closet as Emily yanked dresses aside with sudden force. The energy in her movements was sharp, almost desperate, as if she was fighting something invisible that pressed against her chest. Her breath came in short bursts. Every dress she touched felt wrong. Too bright, too dull, too much, too little. Nothing seemed to match the heaviness sitting in her stomach. The party was only hours away, not the signing, not the official deal. The promotion party Apex was throwing to celebrate Daniel becoming vice president. The party everyone in his world seemed to care about more than anything else. And after everything Daniel had said the past week, she wasn't even sure she should go. Emily stopped, hands trembling slightly, and pressed her forehead against the closet door. The rush of intensity finally slowed, sliding into a quiet ache that spread through her chest. She pulled back a simple, elegant navy blue dress. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was calm, like her. The kind of outfit a woman would choose when she wanted to support someone she loved without taking any attention. She laid the dress on the bed and sat beside it, smoothing the fabric thoughtfully. Despite everything Daniel had done recently, the dismissive comments, the hidden messages, the sharp tone, she still planned to stand by him. It wasn't because she was weak. It wasn't because she needed him. It was because she remembered who he used to be, and because somewhere inside her, she hoped he might still see the woman who had believed in him long before anyone else did. Her fingers tightened around the dress. A memory pulled her backward. Flashback. Young Emily, just 22, stood in a broken-down office with peeling wallpaper, dusty windows, and old floors that creaked with every step. She was packing boxes filled with the last pieces of her first failed attempt at starting a business. The air smelled like old paper and defeat, but she wasn't crying. She was smiling. She pressed her hand against the wall and whispered to herself, "One day this will be mine." A tall, older man stepped into the room. This was Mr. Hale, her mentor, one of the first business advisors who believed she had something rare. He adjusted his glasses and looked at her with gentle approval. He said, "Power is loud when insecure, quiet when real." Emily held those words close. They shaped everything she did after that. She didn't show off. She didn't brag. She didn't shine publicly. She worked in silence until her silence became influence. The memory faded, leaving her sitting on the bed once more, staring at her dress as if it held all the choices she'd ever made. She took a long, steady breath and stood. Her eyes drifted toward Daniel's laptop on the desk across the room. The screen glowed faintly, left open, as if calling to her. That uneasy feeling crept back into her chest. She stepped closer, not snooping, just intending to close it. But then she saw the email on the screen. Promotion party guest list, spouses optional, and beneath it, a small checkbox labeled bringing spouse. Daniel had left it unchecked. In a separate column, she noticed another field, guest of honor if applicable. Typed neatly beside it was a name she had seen only once on his phone before. Maya Reese, consultant. It felt like a quiet punch, not loud, not dramatic, just painfully clear. She stared at the screen, blinking slowly, her throat tight. She wasn't angry. She wasn't surprised. She was hurt. Hurt in a way that came after years of pretending things were still good. Emily closed the laptop gently, almost tenderly, as if the truth inside it might spill out if she made a sound. She walked back to her bed, picked up her phone with steady fingers, and typed the simplest message she could manage. "Should I come tonight?" Her thumb hesitated above the send button. Then she pressed it. Moments later, her phone buzzed. Daniel's reply appeared, casual and cold. "If you want, just don't draw attention." The words hit harder than the unchecked box, and harder than the name in the guest of honor field. Emily stood still, the dress hanging limply from her hand, as if she had forgotten how to move. A hollow silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. His message wasn't a request. It was a boundary, a line drawn quietly, showing exactly where she stood in his world. And deep in her chest, something shifted, small, quiet, but powerful. She set the dress down, no longer certain why she was going at all. Yet she knew she would still show up, not for him, but to see something for herself, something she could no longer ignore. As she turned off the lights, her phone lit up again with a new notification, this time from the party organizers. A single line stood out. Special introduction planned for Daniel Ross and his guest of honor. Emily stared at it, her breath catching. She knew now the guest of honor probably wasn't her. The music blasted through the speakers, even though the guests hadn't arrived yet, shaking the air in the half-finished party hall. Technicians tested lights, workers rushed around adjusting decorations, and in the center of it all, Daniel stood laughing loudly with a woman Emily had never met in person before. His laughter was sharp, too loud, too eager. The intensity of it cut across the room like a blade. The woman beside him was younger, stylish, confident. Her name was Maya Reese, 27, a consultant brought in to help Apex Corporation prepare for the Lexton Dynamics deal and polish Daniel's image as the face of the partnership. But what nobody openly said, not yet, was something Emily could sense instantly. Maya was not just a consultant. She stood close, far too close. Her fingers brushed Daniel's arm with a slow, familiar touch, and Daniel didn't pull away. The intensity in the room slowly softened, turning into an uneasy quiet inside Emily's chest. She watched from the doorway, unseen for the first few seconds, taking in the scene without moving. Her heartbeat slowed painfully, each beat heavy and cold. Maya leaned in, laughing at something Daniel whispered. She placed her hand on his chest with an ease that did not belong to a consultant. Daniel smiled, wide, proud, almost showing off. Emily swallowed hard. She forced herself to walk inside. The hall was decorated with gold banners, soft lights, and elegant tables. The hotel staff moved around them, finalizing place cards and checking the sound system. Everything screamed success, ambition, celebration. Everything seemed built to highlight Daniel. As Emily stepped closer, Maya's smile faded. Her eyes flicked toward Emily, scanning her up and down with a mixture of curiosity and irritation. Maya said quietly, just loud enough for Daniel to hear, "She showed up?" Her voice wasn't surprised. It was annoyed, like Emily's presence was an inconvenience. Daniel stiffened for a second before giving Maya a reassuring look. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I'll handle it. Tonight is about the promotion, the executives, and the signing image. No drama." His voice hung in the air like a cold breeze. Emily stood only a few steps away now, close enough to hear every word. She felt a pressure in her chest, tight, sharp, but not unfamiliar. She had felt something like this before, years ago, when Daniel first started guarding his phone, when he changed his passwords, when he smiled at messages he didn't explain. A short flashback flickered in her memory. Emily had walked into the living room 2 weeks earlier. Daniel sat on the couch, shoulders hunched, typing quickly on his phone. As soon as Emily stepped in, he tilted the screen away. She asked softly, "Everything okay?" He nodded too fast. "Yeah, just work," he said. But when the message preview appeared, she had seen the end of a sentence. "Look perfect beside me tonight." She didn't know who he meant. She didn't ask. A part of her already knew. The memory faded. Now she stood only a few feet from Maya, the woman who completed that text message. Emily forced a polite smile. "Daniel, I didn't know you had help organizing tonight's event." Daniel's jaw tightened. "This is Maya," he said, voice too flat. "She's consulting for the company, helping with my image before the signing." Maya stepped forward, offering a hand. "I've been working very closely with Daniel these past months," she said, letting the words linger with meaning. Emily shook her hand gently, feeling Maya's confidence like a slap. Maya's touch was firm, as if trying to establish dominance in a quiet, subtle way. Emily didn't respond. She didn't create a scene. She didn't need to. But she felt it, the shift, the silent distance growing wider between her and Daniel. A space Maya now filled with ease. Emily forced herself to turn away. "Excuse me," she murmured. She walked toward the restroom, steady, calm, controlled. But when she reached the hallway, 2 of Daniel's co-workers passed behind her. They didn't notice she could hear them. One whispered, "Why did he invite her? HR said the guest of honor is that consultant." The other replied, "She doesn't fit. Everyone knows he'll show up with Maya soon anyway." Emily froze. For a moment she felt weightless, like the floor beneath her had disappeared. Her fingers curled around the edge of the restroom door, steadying herself. Her breath trembled, but she didn't cry. She wouldn't give the moment that power. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, staring at her reflection. Her heart was bruised, but her eyes held something new, something rising from deep inside, quiet but strong. Then her phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. "Where did you go? Don't do anything weird. Tonight has to look perfect." Emily stared at the glowing screen. A cold calm settled in her chest, because beyond the mirror, beyond the whispers, beyond Maya, Emily knew she was walking towards something far bigger than humiliation. A shift was coming. The music exploded through the ballroom the moment Daniel stepped onto the small stage, the speakers shaking as the crowd erupted into applause. Lights flashed wildly, photographers snapped pictures, and confetti rained from above like a storm of celebration. Daniel raised his glass high, soaking in every scream, every cheer, every admiring stare. He wasn't just enjoying the moment, he was drunk on it. The hotel's event staff moved like a practice machine around the edges, servers topping up drinks, security watching the doors, a coordinator hovering near the stage, making sure everything looked perfect for Apex's photos and for the executives who would later attend the signing. Emily stood at the back of the room, her heart pounding at the sheer intensity of the scene. It felt like the entire world was looking at Daniel, everyone except him looking at her. She watched him smile, watched him bow, watched him play the role of the rising star he had worked so hard to become. A softer part of her remembered cheering for him once, back when he still treated her like someone who mattered. The noise gradually dimmed inside her chest, replaced by the quiet ache she had carried for months. She smoothed the skirt of her navy blue dress, took a deep breath, and began walking toward him. She didn't want a dramatic moment. She only wanted to congratulate her husband. As she stepped closer through the crowd, she saw Maya already standing beside Daniel, her hand resting lightly on his lower back. Maya's smile was sharp, polished, full of confidence. Too confident for a consultant. Emily's steps slowed. The event coordinator leaned toward Daniel with a microphone, smiling. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our newly promoted Vice President, Daniel Ross, and of course, a special thanks to his consultant, Maya Reese, who has helped prepare Apex for its upcoming partnership with Lexington Dynamics. The words special thanks hit like confirmation. The guest of honor line from the email made painful sense. Just then, Daniel spotted Emily. His smile faltered, the briefest crack before he forced it back into place for the audience. Emily raised a hand slightly, offering a small smile. Congrats, Daniel. She took one more step forward. Before she could get any closer, Maya turned to adjust her glass of red wine, shifting in the tight space between them. The crowd pressed, a server passed behind her, and in a movement that looked like an accident to everyone watching, but felt deliberate to Emily, Maya's arm swung just enough for the drink to slip from her hand and spill directly onto Emily's dress. Oh, Maya gasped in fake shock, pressing a hand to her mouth. I'm so sorry. The crowd bumped me. The wine soaked into the front of Emily's dress instantly, dark red spreading like a wound. Emily froze, stunned. It's okay. Accidents happen, she murmured quietly, already stepping back to move away from the center of attention. But Maya's eyes flicked sideways. There was nothing accidental in the way her gaze lingered with satisfaction. A few people chuckled. A phone tilted up, recording. Someone whispered, Yikes, wrong night to be messy. Daniel's expression turned tight, embarrassed, irritated. The event coordinator looked nervous. Cameras pointed in their direction. The company's senior executives were watching. This was the night Apex wanted clean photos and flawless PR for the upcoming signing. Maya leaned in just enough for Daniel to hear. You need to control this. She's making a scene in front of the partners. Emily wasn't doing anything, just standing there, trying to hold the edges of her ruined dress together. But Daniel's pride, swollen from all the applause and pressure, snapped under the weight of those eyes and that whisper. His voice cut through the music. Why did you even come? The words struck Emily like a slap in front of everyone. Daniel stepped closer, his voice rising. You're embarrassing me. Look at you. Your dress is ruined. You're drawing attention. Why would you show up like this tonight of all nights? We talked about keeping things low-key. Emily opened her mouth, stunned, hurt, breathless. I came to support you. But Daniel didn't hear her, or didn't want to. He looked toward two security guards standing near the stage. Hotel security, hired for the night, men who had no idea this woman was his wife. Can you escort her out? Politely, please, he said, still speaking into a microphone that wasn't fully muted. She needs to clean up. This is an important night. The room went silent for a moment. The security guards walked toward her immediately. They didn't grab her, didn't shove her, but they still positioned themselves on either side of her in a way that made her humiliation complete. I can walk by myself, Emily whispered, but they kept in step with her, doing their job. People turned their heads, some whispered, some pitied her, some didn't bother hiding their smirks. Emily felt her mascara beginning to run, smudging under her eyes from the sting of tears she refused to let fall. She lifted her chin slightly, refusing to break down in front of these people. Not here, not now. As she walked past Maya, the younger woman leaned in just a little and whispered with a cruel smile, Some people don't belong in these circles. The words burned. Emily didn't respond. She wouldn't give Maya the satisfaction. But the pain sat heavy in her chest, a thick pressure that stole her breath. The guards released her once she reached the front doors. The cold night air hit her face, mixing with the heat of shame still burning across her skin. She stepped outside, feeling small in a way she hadn't felt in years. Her phone buzzed. She wiped her eyes quickly before checking it. half expecting another harsh message from Daniel. But it wasn't Daniel. It was her lawyer, Linda. He crossed the line. Multiple witnesses reached out. The board approved what we discussed. Meet tomorrow. Emily stared at the message, her heartbeat slowing, then settling into a steady, cold calm. Something inside her, something long buried, stirred awake. Her humiliation had just become the final push she didn't know she needed. As she stood alone outside the party, the faint echo of music behind her, she felt the future shifting. And somewhere deep inside she knew, tomorrow would not be a day Daniel Ross expected. Emily's hands slammed against the steering wheel the moment she pulled into the empty parking lot, the car shaking under the force. Her breath came fast, too fast, as if the humiliation from the party had followed her into the vehicle and wrapped around her throat. The intense pressure in her chest felt like it might burst, and for the first time in years, she didn't try to hide it. She let herself feel the full weight of everything she had been holding back. Her mascara was smeared, her dress was ruined, her heart was bruised, and she had never felt more alone. Slowly, painfully, the rush of emotion fell into a quiet stillness. The parking lot was silent, just dim corner lights flickering overhead. The world outside didn't move. Emily rested her forehead on the steering wheel, letting silence fill the space Daniel had emptied long ago. Her phone, lying on the passenger seat, still showed Linda's last message from minutes earlier. He crossed the line. Multiple witnesses contacted us. Board approved what we discussed. Meeting first thing tomorrow. Emily had replied with only 2 words. I'll come. She exhaled, the memory of hitting send still fresh in her chest. Memory slipped in without warning. Flashback. She saw herself years earlier, newly married, sitting at their small kitchen table, smiling as she filled out applications for side jobs because Daniel's salary alone couldn't cover their bills. She remembered quietly paying rent when he wasn't looking, slipping grocery money into his wallet so he could feel proud. She remembered the long nights she spent working at her tiny desk, building ideas, drafting proposals, shaping the future of a business he didn't even know existed. While she typed until dawn, Daniel slept peacefully, assuming she was doing extra admin work. Another memory surfaced. The night Daniel had held her hands and promised in a soft voice, I'll take care of you one day. You deserve so much. She had believed him, because back then, he had meant it. The flashbacks faded, leaving a sharper truth in their place. He didn't just fall out of love. He simply grew into a version of himself that could no longer see her. He outgrew the woman he assumed she was, quiet, safe, unimpressive, the woman he believed he had surpassed. But Emily had never been that woman. And now, the version of her he dismissed was the one holding the power he needed most. She lifted her head slowly, wiping the streaks beneath her eyes. The trembling in her hands eased, replaced by a calm certainty she had not felt in a long time. She reached into the passenger seat and grabbed her laptop. It opened with a soft click, the bright screen lighting up the dark interior of the car. Her desktop appeared, organized, intentional, full of documents that carried real weight. Not imaginary work, not a hobby, her life's work. She clicked a folder labeled Lexton Dynamics Executive. Inside, a new file waited, sent earlier that evening by Linda after the party. Board meeting, emergency ethics and acquisition response. Emily opened it. Her heartbeat steadied as she read the agenda. Bullet points outlined their concerns. VP from Apex involved in public misconduct. Consultant relationship creating ethical conflict. Risk to reputation ahead of $20 billion signing. Required corrective action and decision on deal status. The VP from Apex wasn't just a title. They meant Daniel. She had the authority to attend. The board recognized her not just as an investor, but as majority owner. She had the right to weigh in on how Lexton handled its partners, and now she had the will. A slow breath escaped her lips, no longer shaky. The version of Emily who had stayed silent for years died somewhere in that parking lot. She whispered into the quiet air, voice steady, calm, almost frightening in its certainty. I built it alone. I'll protect it alone. The words hung there, powerful and final. She closed the laptop gently, her eyes lifting toward the faint glow on the horizon. Somewhere out there, Daniel stood under falling confetti, celebrating a future he believed belonged to him. Tomorrow, in a boardroom he didn't know she controlled, he would learn the truth. And in the next scene, the first move of her quiet storm would begin. The doors slammed behind Emily with a metallic thud that echoed through the marble lobby, snapping the morning silence in half. Security guards straightened the moment they saw her badge, founder access, swinging from her neck. The sudden shift in their posture filled the air with immediate intensity. People watching from the receptionist's desk felt it too. Something was different today, something powerful. Emily didn't slow her steps. Her heels struck the floor in a sharp, steady rhythm as she walked through the high-security corporate building that belonged to her. Even if most of the world didn't know it, the glass walls reflected her calm expression, but inside her resolve burned with a cold fire. Just hours earlier, she had been pushed out of a party like an unwanted guest. Now she walked as the silent owner of a company worth billions. The intensity settled into a deep, cold quiet as she stepped inside the private elevator. She pressed the top floor. The doors closed, sealing her in. As the elevator rose, her reflection stared back. Still elegant, but harder now. Not broken, woken. Her mind slipped into a memory. Flashback. 3 years earlier, Emily sat in a dim conference room with only one light flickering overhead. Her original startup was falling apart. She had investors backing out, debts rising, and a competitor crushing her market. She had stayed awake for 72 hours straight, trying to save it. A soft knock came at the door. It was Mr. Hale, her old mentor. He placed a folder in front of her. "There's a failing tech firm looking for a merger. They're small, but they have patents worth saving." She flipped through the papers, her hands shaking. "I don't have the money to compete." Mr. Hale looked her straight in the eyes. "Then buy them quietly. Merge under a new identity. If nobody knows it's you, nobody can target you or your husband. It's risky, but if anyone can make it work, it's you." That night, with courage she didn't even know she had, Emily signed the papers. She bought out the remaining shareholders one by one. She took everything that was falling apart and rebuilt it under a hidden, powerful name, Lexton Dynamics. She became the majority owner, silently, legally, alone. The elevator dinged softly, pulling her back to the present. The doors opened to a long hallway leading to a conference room with frosted glass walls. Inside, the company's top legal advisors and 2 board members waited. They stood as she entered, unsure how to greet a woman most had only heard rumors about. Emily took her seat at the head of the table. Her lawyer, Ms. Carter, mid-40s, sharp eyes, calm voice, spoke first. "Emily, we reviewed the incident you reported from last night, plus the statements people sent us." Emily clasped her hands together. "Daniel's public behavior and his relationship with a consultant violate multiple ethics clauses. If we go forward with this deal under his name, Lexton looks weak and careless. He cannot represent the company at a signing worth billions." One of the board members adjusted his glasses slowly. "Your husband is the VP from Apex Corp?" Emily nodded once. "Yes, and he has no idea who owns the company he's begging." A wave of shock passed across the table. Silent, thick, undeniable. Questions flickered in their eyes, but no one asked them out loud. There wasn't time. Miss Carter straightened her notes. "You have full authority to freeze the partnership negotiations until we complete the ethics review." Another lawyer added, "And based on everything you described, and the footage and testimonies, it is advisable. If we don't act, regulators will ask why." Emily took a breath. "Then freeze them, immediately. Change today's planned signing session to an ethics and partnership review meeting. I want him informed in the room, not through email." Her voice was calm, but every person in the room felt the weight of it. She was no longer the quiet wife in the corner of a party. She was the woman who controlled the deal that could change an entire corporation. A young legal assistant hesitated before sliding a digital tablet across the table toward her. "There's one more matter. To protect the company from conflict of interest, we recommend establishing separation immediately." Emily glanced down. On the screen were divorce documents drafted in advance, as an option Linda had mentioned before. It wasn't just personal, it was legal. Staying married to the executive representing the other side would raise questions with auditors and regulators if she remained majority owner. For a moment, everything fell quiet. Her marriage, once full of promises, laughter, hopes, now sat on a glowing screen like a final chapter, waiting to be closed. Emily placed her thumb on the signature pad, but just before she pressed down, Ms. Carter said softly, "There will be consequences, Emily. For him, and for you, financial, public, emotional. This changes everything." Emily's eyes hardened. "Then let them come." Her thumb touched the screen. The signature glowed. In the legal system, the divorce process had begun, and somewhere in the building a notification pinged, signaling the first domino falling. What came next would shake Daniel's world. The boardroom doors swung open with a force that startled everyone inside, and Daniel Ross strode in like a man who already owned the future. His footsteps were bold and loud, echoing off the polished floor. He wore a fresh suit, a brighter tie, and a smile so wide it almost looked carved into his face. He didn't sit, he claimed the room. "This is it," he declared, taking his seat at the head of the visitor's side. "Let's finalize this deal and make history." He hadn't read every word of the last email from legal. He saw only Lexton requested a closed-door meeting regarding the agreement, and assumed closed door meant exclusive, not emergency review. The intensity of his entrance crackled through the room. Executives exchanged looks, some impressed, some unsure, but Daniel didn't notice. His confidence was too thick, too heavy, swallowing every corner of the room. Slowly the energy softened, settling into tense anticipation as the board members of Lexton Dynamics filed in. Papers shuffled, pens clicked. A few cleared their throats. Daniel tapped his fingers on the table, humming softly, impatient for applause that wasn't coming. He didn't notice the empty seat at the far end. Not yet. The board chair, Mr. Langford, 60 stern calm, began speaking. "We will start once all key decision makers are present." Daniel leaned back with a practiced grin. "Everyone that matters is here." A few board members exchanged quiet glances. Someone whispered under their breath. Then the door behind Daniel opened. Soft footsteps entered, and the room went still. Emily walked in, not in her elegant dress from the party, not with mascara running down her cheeks. She entered wearing a fitted navy blue blazer, crisp trousers, and a badge clipped to her pocket, the badge she hadn't worn in years outside private meetings. Founder access. Daniel froze. His smile died instantly, collapsing into confusion, shock, then something close to fear. "Emily," he croaked. What are you doing here?" Emily didn't look at him. Not yet. She walked calmly to the empty chair at the end of the table and took her seat with quiet authority. Mr. Langford stood, straightening his jacket. "Mr. Ross," he said, "allow me to introduce the majority owner of Lexton Dynamics, Miss Emily Ross." The words dropped like a stone into water, sending ripples of disbelief across the room. Daniel turned white. "What?" he whispered. No, that's not possible. Emily owns..." "No." He laughed nervously, looking around the table for someone to share the joke. No one laughed. Emily finally looked up, her expression calm and unreadable. "Yes, Daniel," she said, "I own the company." Daniel shook his head rapidly. No, you do admin work. This makes no sense. Why didn't you tell me?" Emily's voice was soft, cold, controlled. "You never asked." A few executives looked away, uncomfortable with how exposed Daniel suddenly seemed. Daniel leaned forward, sweating now. "Emily, we can't do this here. This is my big moment. Don't ruin this." Mr. Langford cleared his throat. "Mr. Ross, your conduct at last night's event and your conflict of interest with a consultant have forced the board to reconsider your eligibility for partnership." Daniel blinked fast. "My what?" "My conduct? What conduct?" "It was just a party." Emily slid a file across the table. Inside were photos from the party, video stills, witness statements, ethics clauses highlighted in red. Daniel's lips parted, but no sound came out. Emily then slid the printed summary of their decision toward him, but not for his signature. A single note was attached. "Partnership suspended pending ethical review." Gas erupted around the room. Pens dropped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Daniel stared at the note as if it were poison. You froze the deal?" he said, his voice cracking. "Emily, you can't do this to me. This is my career. Emily's expression didn't change. I'm not doing anything to you, Daniel. I'm protecting a company you disrespected before you even signed with it. The board chair nodded. The partnership is suspended. Further action will be taken after the investigation. Apex will be notified formally within the hour. Daniel scrambled to gather his papers, his face red and shaking. No, you can't do this. You can't. He stopped mid-sentence as he looked at Emily, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She wasn't the quiet wife anymore. She wasn't the forgotten partner. She was the owner of the empire he needed. The meeting ended abruptly. Executives left in quiet, rushed steps. Daniel followed Emily into the hallway, grabbing her arm just out of sight of the boardroom. You're ruining my life, he hissed. Emily pulled her arm back slowly, her eyes steady. No, Daniel, she said. You ruined it yourself. A shadow passed behind them. Someone approaching with serious purpose. A Lexton assistant stepped closer. Ms. Ross, Apex's HR team just called. They've received our formal complaint and requested the evidence package. The next moment would change everything. Daniel burst through the doors of Apex Corporation the next morning with the same force he once walked in with pride. But this time the intensity came from panic. Sharp breaths, frantic steps, wide eyes. People stopped mid-conversation and turned to watch him, sensing something broken inside him. For the first time, he didn't fix his tie or straighten his posture. He rushed toward his office like a man trying to outrun a disaster already catching his heels. But the disaster had arrived before he did. A security guard, someone who always greeted him with respect, stood waiting at his office door. Daniel's badge access had been deactivated. The red light blinked coldly when he tried to scan his card. Mr. Ross, the guard said gently, you're required in human resources immediately. Those words cracked something inside his chest. Daniel followed, his steps shaky now, not confident. The hallway felt longer, brighter, unforgiving. Every open office door held a pair of watching eyes. Inside HR, the room was quiet. Too quiet. A woman from compliance sat beside Daniel's boss, Mr. Green, a man who once praised Daniel loudly in meetings. Today, Mr. Green looked tired, disappointed, almost distant. Daniel, he began, due to the ethics complaint filed by Lexton Dynamics and the evidence surrounding your conduct at your promotion event, you're suspended effective immediately. Daniel's breath caught. Suspended? But we're under investigation, compliance added. And depending on the findings, Mr. Green continued, termination is likely. Lexton is our largest potential partner. Their formal statement mentions a hostile incident involving your wife and your relationship with a consultant who reports indirectly into you. Daniel stared at them. My personal life shouldn't. Your personal life became a public event in front of our potential partner and several of our own executives, compliance said. That makes it corporate. The intensity in the room dissolved into a slow, cold dread inside Daniel. His world, once overflowing with applause, was shrinking into a cage of consequences. He barely heard the rest. Words like misconduct, conflict of interest, policy violation, HR review, inappropriate consultant relationship flowed together, hitting him one after another. By afternoon, he was escorted out of the building he once believed he would lead. Back at his apartment, a place suddenly too quiet, Daniel sat on the couch, staring at the wall. His phone buzzed nonstop at first, then slowed, then stopped almost completely. When he tried calling coworkers, the calls went straight to voicemail. When he messaged friends, the replies were short and polite, not supportive. No one wanted to be tied to a sinking ship. Finally, he called Maya. She picked up on the second ring, her voice sharp. What do you want, Daniel? They suspended me, he whispered. Lexton filed a complaint. You have to help me talk to the board. You're part of this. You were there. No, she snapped. I was part of your success, not your downfall. Maya, I have other clients and a reputation to protect, she said. They've already asked me for a statement. I told them you pursued me. I'm not losing contracts because you couldn't control yourself at your own party. His chest tightened. You're just going to walk away? I'm not sinking with you, she said, and hung up without hesitation. Daniel stared at the screen, feeling something cold spread through his stomach. Then another email arrived. Automated banking notice. Your credit line has been temporarily reduced due to changes in employment status. Another message followed from the company benefits portal. Bonus payment and stock options on hold pending investigation outcome. His hands shook. Everything was slipping away. The job, the reputation, the money, the future he thought he was building. He tried calling Emily, once, twice, 5 times. Each call went to voicemail. Her silence was louder than any scream. He slumped forward, covering his face with both hands. Tears hit the floor, raw, helpless tears he couldn't control. His shoulders shook as memories flooded back without mercy. Emily sitting at a small desk, typing late into the night. Emily quietly sliding money into his wallet when they struggled. Emily telling him she believed in him. Emily carrying the weight he never noticed. She wasn't just admin. She never was. He realized painfully that the woman he pushed aside was the one holding the power he now needed for survival. He had destroyed the only bridge that could have saved him, and for the first time, he understood the full size of his mistake. A knock shattered the silence. Daniel stiffened, wiping his face quickly. Maybe a friend had come. Maybe someone cared. He opened the door. A man in a gray suit stood there, holding a sealed envelope. "Daniel Ross?" the man asked. "Yes," Daniel said, voice small. The man handed him the envelope. "You've been served." Daniel blinked hard, choking on his own breath. He tore open the envelope with shaking hands. Divorce papers. Emily's digital signature already present at the bottom, filed through the court system. Before he could process the shock, his phone buzzed with a new notification. One final blow waiting for him. A court app alert. Mandatory mediation date confirmed. See details attached. The next scene would show exactly what happened in that room. 3 weeks later, the mediation room door burst open as Daniel rushed in, eyes wild, breathing hard, like a man running from a fire that had followed him for days. The intensity hit the room instantly. Papers shook on the table from the force of the door. A mediator looked up, startled. Emily, sitting quietly at the far end of the table, did not move. The weeks since his suspension had aged him. His suit no longer looked sharp. His face carried deep shadows. His phone, once a constant stream of emails and calls, now lay dark on the table. Daniel froze when he saw her. Her posture calm, her hands steady, her expression unreadable. For the first time, he hesitated before stepping closer. He lowered himself into the chair across from her, shoulders slumped, not only in defeat, but in fear of losing the one thing he never understood he needed until now. "Emily," he whispered, voice cracking, "please, just listen." The intensity of the moment softened into a heavy, quiet silence. Emily kept her gaze low, tracing the rim of her water glass with one finger. She didn't rush. She didn't tremble. She didn't fight. She simply waited. The mediator, a neutral woman in her 50s, cleared her throat. "We're here today for mandatory mediation regarding the division of assets and final terms of the divorce. You'll both have a chance to speak." Daniel swallowed hard. "I can change," he blurted, not waiting for structure. "I swear I can. I made mistakes, stupid ones, but I didn't mean to hurt you. I was stressed. I thought you didn't care about my career." He leaned forward, desperate. "I didn't know you owned Lexington. If I had known..." Emily raised her eyes slowly, and the sentence died in his throat. "Daniel," she said softly, "this isn't about the company." He stared at her, confused, lost. She continued, voice calm, fragile but sure. "This is about everything you stopped seeing, everything you stopped hearing." He opened his mouth, but Emily lifted a hand, gentle, quiet, silencing him without force. Her mind began to drift, and her expression softened as memories flickered through it. A younger Daniel, kind, hopeful, holding her hand as they walked through a small park. "You deserve the world, Emily," he had said back then. "One day I'll give it to you." Another flash. Daniel cooking her a simple dinner in their first apartment, burning half of it, but laughing as they ate anyway. Another. Emily working late at her desk while Daniel slept peacefully on the couch, unaware she was sacrificing sleep to keep their lives steady. Another. Daniel leaving earlier and earlier for work, answering fewer calls, smiling secretly at his phone, the distance between them growing like a silent wall. Another. The promotion party. his cruel words into a live microphone. Maya's smirk, the humiliation burning into her skin as security escorted her past strangers' phones. And finally, the boardroom, Daniel's face collapsing when the truth hit him. When he realized the woman he dismissed owned the company he needed. The flashbacks faded. Emily blinked, clearing the emotion from her eyes. She looked at Daniel again, but this time with sadness instead of anger. "You didn't outgrow me," she said quietly. "You outgrew the version of me you wanted me to be." Daniel touched the edge of the table, as if steadying himself. "I didn't mean it. Any of it. I swear, Emily, if you give me one more chance—" "No," she said gently. The word wasn't loud, it wasn't harsh, but it was final. Emily reached for the divorce papers in front of her. The mediator slid a pen toward her. Her hands did not shake this time. Not like they had the night he pushed her out of the party. Not like when she had cried alone in her car. Her hand was steady, certain. She signed her name, each letter written with years of silence, pain, and awakening behind it. Daniel watched, his face crumbling. He didn't reach for the papers. He didn't argue again. He just watched the woman he never truly knew sign the end of their story. When she finished, she slid the papers across the table. Not coldly, not angrily, just peacefully. Her voice was soft, almost comforting, almost kind. "I didn't crush you, Daniel," she said. "I just stopped protecting you from yourself." Daniel lowered his face into his hands, shoulders shaking, regret pouring out too late. Emily stood. She gave him one last look, not of hatred, not of triumph, but of acceptance. Then she walked out of the mediation room, down the hallway, through the glass doors, into the bright, warm sunlight waiting outside. No crowds, no applause, no victory parade, just peace. Something she had earned in silence. She stepped into that sunlight as a woman free. Free from humiliation, free from doubt, free from a marriage that had slowly erased her. And as the doors closed behind her, a soft breeze brushed against her face, as if the world itself welcomed her into her new beginning. Somewhere inside, she knew this was the first day of her real life. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.